Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of On the Mic with Mike. I'm your host, Mike Larkin, and joining me today, she will be taking on Catalina Garcia this Saturday for CCW Capital Championship Wrestling, Miss Savanna Stone. Savanna, it's a pleasure and a privilege. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. First and foremost, it is a matchup I am really looking forward to. You against the luchadora herself, Miss Catalina Garcia. How you feeling going into Saturday?
I'm feeling pretty confident, if I'm gonna be honest. I'm very excited to work with someone such as Catalina, her caliber, her experience level. I'm really excited. I'm very excited.
Look at it from a stance too as well. This woman, my goodness gracious, Catalina Garcia, besides the luchadora high octane aerial assault style, we've seen her work in NXT, WWE with the likes of Asuka, Bianca Belair, Andrade, and Selena Vega teaming up with Sin Cara. Like that resume speaks for itself, but also as well, she is so quick and so fluid. I think you two are going to gel very well.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm super excited when the announcement came out. I was like, wow, like what a hybrid of styles that this match can have. This match has absolutely no limits. So I'm ready to show the people what we're made out of, what women's wrestling's made out of.
I look at it from a stance too as well. I think with women like yourself being at the forefront, I'm going to do the old proverbial gravitational pull. I think it's one of those things in professional wrestling and the evoking of the emotion, so to speak. I think you
Yeah.
showcase that, and it's one of those things where it's like a lot of people are going to see what you're all about. I mean, if that promo, my goodness gracious, CCW put out the promo. If that promo says anything, I know what it's all about.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I love putting emotion into everything that I do. I'm a very emotional based person, and I think that like the crowd coming and watching wrestling is one thing, but being able to be emotionally attached to what they're watching is so important. I just know, like, when I watch wrestling, I know that's what draws me in. So
No, I agree. I think it's one of those emotions. If you're not evoking emotions and if you're just having everybody sit on your hands and you're really not doing your job, I think sometimes a lot of people forget that. Now, mind you, the wrestling is the most important part as well,
absolutely.
but the character side of things. And if you can convey that emotion, if you can make them believe, then you have them right in the palm of your hands.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that.
And I think it's one of those things too, especially now. I mean, we're going into WrestleMania next week. So my goodness gracious, it's already here. It's a wonderful time for professional wrestling, WrestleMania weekend.
Yep.
I mean, when you have Stone Cold Steve Austin, who, again, after 19 years of what they're doing with KO, the story to that's amazing. Stone Cold cut the promo. After all these years, he's still doing it, and people want to see that. It's that drawing power.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. That's it's a lot harder. At least just from the time I've been in wrestling, it's a lot easier said than done. But I mean, if you have the power to do that, your work and your character and wrestling as a whole lasts a lifetime. Even when you're like gone and retired, if you can pull that crowd in, off of a move, off of an emotion, off of a feeling, off of a word, that resonates with people. And like I said, that lasts a lifetime. So
One of the things I love, and I know we're talking like really old school here, but I look at it from a stance too as well. Like a lot of things in wrestling now, from whether it be like a super kick or a DDT, it's one of those things like look at Jake the Snake Roberts, one of the best techniques and psychologists in history. You knew once he did the and he hocked you in for the DDT, you knew it was over. Like when Shawn Michaels hit the Sweet Chin Music, you knew it was over. So it's that types that are very pivotal. It's a little nuanced to really get you, right?
absolutely, 100%, yes.
And I think what's great about it too is as well, and like it's funny because I remember the first time I saw you, like you were all around the indies, like from example, CCW, WSU, you were all around the plate. And I remember seeing it. I remember like I love just like we talked about conveying emotions, but you were just a specimen in your own right, the overall talent, the fluidity, the crispness. I was really impressed. And I gotta say, you have really showcased that over the years.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm very serious about what I do. I love it. It's my passion. It's my goal. And I think through the years, the biggest thing that I've always thrived for has been just to, you got to keep learning. You might think you know this, but then you wake up the next day, and that's what I love about this business. But I think just about life in general is that you can just learn. You just constantly keep learning. You think you know one thing, and then you wake up the next day and you realize that there's 20 other things from this one thing that you learned, if that makes any sense. And so I think through the years, just with the wrestling, small amount of time I've been in this business, I just always thrive to learn more. I'll give me all the critiques. Let me learn off of what I do. Let me grow off of who I am and what I can become, you know?
Well, it's constructive criticism, you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
We need more of that. And I think what you do
Yes.
so eloquently is the fact that if you look at life in itself, like we talk about wrestling being that art form, life is an
Yeah.
art form. We're all just applying our crafts.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Hmm.
I think that's the best mindset to have. And I know sometimes nowadays in today's world, I mean, we have so many companies, we have a variety, and that's what makes wrestling great. We have a variety of companies and talents. It's amazing. But what's awesome about it too is with this women's wrestling boom, we have a company like Capital Championship Wrestling, so new, so up and coming. The roster is stacked for what we have for this show and just in general with that company.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. I think I love it. I love seeing women um like I love seeing women portrayed in such a big spotlight. I think it's extremely important to showcase. I think women add such a different flavor and style to wrestling. Um, and I think like we're badasses in our own right, and I think it's time to showcase that. And I think it's important with promotions like Capital Championship Wrestling that they're able to show like, hey, if you just have a women's show, it can be a draw. Like people are gonna come and just watch women. You know, that's such a powerful movement. Because I know for so long WWE, you know, all the big name companies, they were always scared that, you know, are we gonna, you know, wrestling's about the views at the end of the day. You can be as great as you want to be, but if you're not getting the views, they're not going to put you on TV. They don't care. And I think the same thing applies in the indie scene. If you're, you know, obviously everyone wants women's wrestling. I don't think a lot of people sit here as like, screw women's wrestling, you know. But I think it's been a constant battle of like, if there is a women's promotion, is it going to be a draw without any men? And to see Capital Championship Wrestling go so far and continue to have this draw and this publicity and bring in the talent and the women that they're bringing in, it's just super exciting to me. It's very, very exciting and very big.
Oh, agreed. And here's the thing, like I go back to, so when WWE was all about, and I'll say this, from like the 2005 period to like 2008, right? Every like highlighted match for the women was like, okay, who's the Playboy cover girl? Now, mind you,
Yeah.
it's fine, but also at the same time, it's like, I remember going to see Ring of Honor and Shimmer matches were on there. Like you had Sarah Del Rey and Daisy Hayes and Rain and women like this, and they're giving these women time. Now, mind you, we've come a long way with women's wrestling, but it's like that time period. It's like, goddamn, give these women time. I mean, we had Lita and Trish on Raw. Let's have more of this. It's not just about the cover girls.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think women should show different styles, different flavors, different, you know, you're going to connect, you know, one person someone told me was that you're not going to appeal to everyone, so don't try. Appeal to your audience, appeal to your viewers. Make sure that that your viewers, you're providing them the best that you can provide them. And that's not to try to hone more people in, but I think you nailed it on the head. It's just more like we want to see more. Like yes, if that's your thing, if looks your thing, go for it, do it. Have a match that's more based off of looks or character, but also show the women that can wrestle, show the women that can do a mixture of both. Just more in general. And so I think that's another thing too, is you see on CZW the different styles, the different looks, the different genres of wrestling all on one poster. And that's so exciting because it appeals to so many different people.
I mean, they just announced, for God's sake, that Camille and Alley Catch is now for the NWA.
Yeah.
Like what a coup that is, because you're having a title like the NWA, Camille's unstoppable and Alley Catch is, and it's on this card. Like what a coup, right?
Yes, absolutely. 100% agree.
And I mean, I look at it from a stance too as well. Like you so eloquently said it, like with women's wrestling, like and like we were talking about, sex appeal is great because women are very beautiful, amazing women. So we have that, but it's like, give us more. It's like, for example, I was at WrestleMania 20, right? You had Stacy Keibler, Miss Jackie, Sable, and Tori Wilson. It's a Playboy pillow fight, right? And then on the things, you got Victoria and Molly Holly. It's like, opposite sides of the spectrum. There's a little bit of both in variety, but it's like,
Yeah,
let them wrestle,
absolutely. I agree. I think that something that was lost, especially more, I'm going to say more so in like the olden days of wrestling, when women were really fighting. And I still think we are. I still think we have a long way to go. But I think back then, especially, it was like, um, you have your sex appeal. But I think what a lot of people tend to forget is that women who are badasses and can fight and get in each other's faces and forearm each other back and forth and super kick each other in the face, like that can also be very attractive. And I think it's important to have, when little girls come and watch, there's so many times I've heard so many different stories of just women who get interviewed and they say like the biggest moment in their career is when a little kid comes up to them and says, oh my gosh, like, I want to be doing what you're doing, like, and stuff like that. And I think showing a strong women too, in different areas and different aspects of storylines are so important, because it's building the next generation.
Absolutely. And I mean, we look at what WWE is doing with NXT 2.0, and I mean, a lot of people poo-pooed on it, but I'm like, you realize, like, and I mean, I'm like, people, do you realize, and like you said, future, this is what WWE, this is what wrestling is going to be in 5 to 10 years. These
Yeah,
stars right here, that's what they're building to.
yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing. I look at it from a stance too. Like, look at when NXT first started, right? Like, nobody knew. We had Tyler Black, we had Seth Rollins, we had Jinder Mahal. You had that influx of main roster talents, new talents. It's what they're doing now, but sometimes people forget about that, and that's a great ingredient for success.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, you have to, and that's something that I just recently started thinking about, actually, only because, when I first started, I started when I was 16 years old. And so, I mean, like, I was very young and like, I had no idea about wrestling. I watched wrestling when I was 15 and decided to become a wrestler when I was 16. So I didn't know like the backstory, or really, like, I was learning along the way. And so when I got to like places like WSU, when it was all women shows, and finally kind of got to sit down and really pick women's brains, and stuff like that they talk so much about, like, it's great what you're doing now, but think about who you're building later on. And that's something that really resonated with me. And now, I'm 22 now and I'm still very young in the business, but that's something that I always think about. If I find like girls who are around my age when I started, like, that's the future, that 15-year-old girl in the audience, they're looking at her, and I think that's something that's so important. And I think that's something that, when you get a locker room full of women, that are on this card, I know from personal experience sitting down with some of these women, they all have that same mindset. And I think that's why this company is so important and has taken such a big rise so quickly, so fast.
Right. And I mean, like you mentioned a company like WSU, that the independent scene for women and just the Northeast in general and all over the world, the independent wrestling scene is striving. It is
Mhm.
and I mean, you have WSU, you have Shimmer, you have Rise.
Yeah.
There's so much out there for women. It's insane because we didn't have a lot
Mhm.
of that back in the day, and now here we are.
No, exactly. And I'm still gonna be selfish and say that I want to see more. And I think we're working towards that, bit by bit. But I think what's really, really cool about CCW especially is that I was talking to the booker, we were trying to make it work and see, he wanted me to be on the show and to be a part of this locker room. And I got to hear his mindset for, why did he start this company? What was the reasons? What does he want to build it to? And I think that's something that's so important. Is a lot of times women are just so excited when they have like an all women's, program, but to really sit back and hear what the booker was wanting to build to, and and had this huge vision just for women. There's not a lot of men in this business that are willing to give like that and give a platform like that. So I think that was something else too that's so appealing to this company, and why you see so many amazing talents on this roster. It's just incredible. It's incredible, and it's very exciting.
First off, I'm glad you mentioned that, because shout out to Marcello and the times that he has started this company. Again,
Yeah.
he is a visionary for what he wants, and he is a smart son. He really is. He's a smart son.
Yes. 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 100%.
And I think what's great about it too is, from his standpoint, and I'll say it from mine, I grew up with an amazing mother and grandmother. That's where I get my love and aspiration and respect for women. But you also have to look at it from a stance too. You have to be open-minded and not very
Yeah.
minded about how you represent women's wrestling in general. Don't be very ignorant, because there are some people, unfortunately, who are still very ignorant and don't see the future and the future of what they want to perceive with professional wrestling going forward.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I think just wrestling as a whole, like just, you said women's wrestling, but I think wrestling as a whole, you have to be open-minded. It's constantly changing. And like what was popular 20 years ago, it comes in waves. It's just like songs, or just like genres of music, right? It's really the same thing, just from what I've gathered, it's the same thing. And so I think, again, like you said, having a booker who's very open-minded and also wants to take into account, like, hey, this is who I am as a wrestler. This is how I want to contribute to the locker room. You don't have to, bookers don't have to do that. They're there to book you. You're there to appeal to what they want. And so for him to take those extra steps, I think is just so cool, because I've seen it with a lot of the women that are here. It's like you said, it's very close. It can be very close-minded at times. So when you find people like this who are willing to be open-minded, you got to take it and run with it.
Yeah, because it's not like, you know what, okay, you're out there, do it. To put it bluntly, it's just like, hey, you know what I'm saying? We're not in that position anymore. So it's one of those things where you like sit down with the talent, break it down. This is what I want. Go out and do it. Because at the end of the day, not only is it just wrestling, it's fun, it's an art form, but it's a business. Go and do the business.
Yes, absolutely. 100%.
Now, with you, I got to say, speaking of business, because big business has picked up, to quote Booker T, you have done so much as far as, like we mentioned, CZW, WSU. You have got to get in there, and I'm going to say this because you just had an amazing match on AEW. 2 women that you worked with, Chris Statlander, the one and only Alien, and legit Layla Hirsch, who legit in her own right, size, stature, girl's a powerhouse, she can move. I want to ask about those 2, because Chris Statlander coming out of Creative Pro, legit Layla Hirsch. How awesome is that to see those ladies thriving?
God, it was so exciting. It was so exciting. I was actually, I believe, one of their last matches I got to have on with them with the Indies, in the Indies, and it was amazing to sit back and learn from those girls. Was absolutely just it's incredible. I think it's a lost art to sit back and hear people share their vision. Too many people take, it's a lot of other people talking about their vision, but to sit back and listen to other people's vision and then combine it with your vision, like you said, it's an art form. You gather more, and for them to be willing to share, I thought was really, really cool. And then on top of them just being like good people, which sometimes is hard to find in this business. Like you said, it's a very business orientated thing. What do I have to do to get to the next level, to the next step? So to kind of look past that and really just at the person. And they were just both very like just kind spirited people. And I learned a lot from them, and they were just like, they were funny. And it was a real treat to get to work with them. It really was.
I look at it from a stance with those 2. Like we talk about yourself, you're 22. My God Almighty, youth is on your side, and it is. I'll be honest with you. I mean, you're only as old as you feel. I turn 30 next month, but at the end of the day, man, age ain't nothing but a number. To quote the late great Aaliyah, we're all thriving and doing our thing in this world. But I also look at it from a stance too, Miss Savanna. It's like you talk about how there's not a lot of good people to find in this business, because it is. It's very tough. You can count the number of friends you have on your fingers and your hands, right? But when legit find those good people, legit pun intended, Layla Hirsch, but those legit people in professional wrestling, it's wonderful. It's not just like, okay, I'm going to look at you in your face, but behind the back, I'm going to cut your nuts off. No, it's like, this is what it is, but also at the same.
No, it is. But to have, I think it's very, it's exactly what you said. And I think that's kind of what circles back to what we were talking about earlier about having, if you're open-minded enough to have that vision of what the future holds. And I think deep down they knew where they were going. I think you have to in this business. You have to have some sort of mindset where, like, one day I'm gonna be here. Maybe it won't be in 5 years. Maybe it'll be in 10 years. Maybe it'll be in 15. But it doesn't matter. One day I'm gonna be here. So this is what I want to leave when I'm gone doing other things. And I felt that when working with them, it was very like, this is who I want you to be. This is what I want to see out of you. This is what you're doing great, but this is what I want to see out of you. And for girls to be able to provide that, women on top of that, it doesn't come as often as people might think. So again, it was a very rewarding opportunity because I love learning. I love hearing people's visions.
Right. And also, what's very cool about that as well is it's one of those things where, like, we were talking about like 20 years ago and how wrestling has evolved. We would see people do like backyard wrestling, for God's sake. And there's the Kazakh Smasher on MTV's True Life talk about he's doing this for Baby Spice. For those who've not seen that episode, that is legit. Go back and watch that. It's hilarious. I digress. But it's one of those things too, as well, where there's not a lot of like that backyard wrestling. I want to jump off my roof, did like McFoley, right? People are
Right.
doing it and on the grind and doing what they're doing. And it's great to see them people thrive and strive, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And what's amazing to see is the fact that with professional wrestling, like another one I'll mention here, like Thunder Rosa, who just came off an amazing match with Breaker, who you've got to get in there. Her and Britt Baker gel so well, same with you two. But god dang, isn't it great to see the rise of Thunder Rosa?
It is. It is. I think it's well deserved. And a lot of times in this business, people say, I know, like, coming in at an early age, people taught me, like, this business owes you nothing. You deserve nothing in this business. And I don't know. I think a lot of times people take that and kind of sit back and have like a salty taste in their mouth. But for me, it was really, again, I hate to use that same word, but rewarding, because it showed me where I needed to go and it showed me that you're owed nothing. But I will say this, I'll counter what I just said. The girls that we just listed, I think it's about damn time that they got something. And I'm so happy to see women who have really worked their asses off. I mean, they did not have it easy. They sat there, and I was willing enough, and they were willing enough to share their story with me and how they started. And I mean, man, they really started from the bottom up. So to really put the grind in for as long as they did and get rewarded, and rightfully so. So, I mean, yeah, it's extremely rewarding. It's extremely awesome to see, and it's well deserved in my opinion.
I mean, I look at it also as well. Like, people talk about the Bella twins being in the Hall of Fame. And of course, people get irked by that. But I'm like, okay, if you actually really analyze, dissect, and decipher it, they worked their butts off. They were there for over 10 years.
Yes.
The reality show boom from Total Divas and Total Bellas, they made themselves entities outside of WWE. It's well deserving because they're inspiring the next generation of women as well.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. Actually, they were one of the, and I always get made fun of for this, but they were one of the two that actually helped me find wrestling. It was WrestleMania. It was Paige and AJ Lee versus Nikki and Brie Bella, and that was the match that got me hooked. And so no, I owe a lot to them. And I think to the people that again don't necessarily like that or whatever, it goes back to views, like you were talking about. They were able to hook viewers on many different platforms and open up, just like John Cena, just like The Rock, where they're hooking people who are, just Hollywood based, but also bringing them into the wrestling. People who would naturally normally watch wrestling, watch it because they're a part of it, and that's where they started. And I think to see women finally start doing that and having their own kind of, like, I'm going to say it and I'll probably get heat for it, but like their own John Cena's, their own Rocks. I mean, Nikki and Brie Bella, in my opinion, were really the first girls to really break out and start doing that. And I think that that's something that we should be celebrating and rewarding.
Well, yeah, I mean, they came off of doing the Diva Search, and then
Yeah.
you have these twins, which nobody ever saw twins before, like,
Yeah.
magic. And it's something unique for the viewer, like we mentioned, and it brought them this legacy. And I think what's great with that you mentioned is for the next generation, for women who don't watch wrestling,
Exactly.
there's a reality show, and they're like, oh, Brie Bella and Nikki Bella do this. I want to watch this. I want to get into this. So it brought
Exactly.
an outlet for people to want to get into professional wrestling.
Exactly. I agree. I think in the past, I know, again, speaking from someone who really never really watched wrestling and just saw one thing and just instantly got hooked. I think you got to think about the people that aren't just like, there's so many stories where, oh, I was 3 years old, or my dad watched it and this is how I got into it. And that's great. I'm not shooting that down, but I think we got to appeal to a larger audience of people who maybe wouldn't think to watch it, but because of this person or that person, you bring them in. And I think to have superstars and performers like that be able to do that's insane, because it's easy to keep the viewers who are going to be viewers regardless, but it's hard to get new viewers to come in and get hooked. And like, again, in this business, I was told by some of the best people in this business, and their mindset, it's all about the views at the end of the day. So you got to be able to respect that.
Oh, I'm 1000%. And I mean, well, first of all, with a lot of stuff like you talk about, first of all, a great match and Paige and AJ Lee against the Bella Twins.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like for those who are new to it, it's like people made fun of Ariana Andrew, aka Cameron Funkadactyls, right? It's the infamous Melina versus Alicia Fox. We've seen it, we laugh at it, but at the same time, the woman made a career for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
to WrestleMania, she did wrestled in NXT, and she made a career of what she's doing. So you got to respect her for it.
Absolutely. And I think another thing too is, I think we were talking about emotion earlier, and I think sometimes like one of the best pieces of advice I was ever given was yes, wrestle with emotion, but when you're thinking business, take the emotion out and start realizing why they're putting this person here. What are they providing the viewers at home? What are they providing the company? Why are they in the position that they're in? Don't hate them for it, because that's an emotion, and that's going to blind you from what the real reason is. And I think that's something that I've really tried to study and debate. And I think that's something that wrestlers need to think about. And that would be a piece of advice that I would share when we're talking about the future generation. Is you're gonna see these people on TV sometimes, and you're gonna think, well, why them? Why couldn't that? I could do that. Well, no, stop. Think for a second and think, why them? Seriously, why them? Why not you? Why isn't it you? What do you need to do to get there? What did they provide? Was it the right place? Was it the right time? Was it the location? Was it, all these things are put into perspective. And I think sometimes this business can be so hateful that we got to, again, have that open mind, like you said, and see what that bigger picture is.
And I think for those who, as far as wrestling goes, if careers end short or it's not for them, there's other ways to get into wrestling. And one of the things I did, I just ring announcing not too long ago for like,
cool.
Thank you. One of those things I learned is like, you realize like commentary, ring announcing, they're all part of the presentation that makes up the show. And I think people underestimate that and don't realize like the power of engaging with the audience for their beat.
Absolutely.
Announcing, they're an important part of the show too, and a lot of people kind of discreet that, or they kind of like demote that. It's like, well, I just want to get into, like, no, you could do other outlets involved with wrestling.
Absolutely. I agree with that so much. I mean, I think ring announcers, referees, commentary, all of that stuff, it's what makes the business. If we didn't have referees, we'd just be in there beating each other, and there's no legitimacy to that. I mean, you could go to a bar fight and see that. Ring announcers, that it's, you look at these people and you remember them off of a name. It's how you say it. It's the larger than life voice that you give them. The people think it's the entrance that and yes, it is, because that's the first time you're seeing them, but before that you're hearing who's coming out. And I think all of that stuff's important, and like you said, it adds legitimacy and it builds, and I think again, if you take a step back and you realize the bigger picture of how, like, just business orientated, how all of this combines together to create one big vision. That's sometimes what a lot of wrestlers forget, because they're so focused on, I need to get this booking, I need to be here, I need to be there. But again, look at the company as a whole. What are they lacking? What are they missing? What can you provide in that moment that makes you stand out? Ring announcing is one of them, refereeing being one of them, commentaries being one of them, all of that stuff. It's so important. It's so important. So I agree 100%.
I mean, when you hear Tony Chimmel talk about the rated R superstar with the crack in his voice, like,
yes, exactly. And those are all things that add, when we talked about like what lasts a lifetime. I mean, it's stuff like that. And like, that wasn't the wrestler, like, obviously that was the wrestler's character, but there's so many elements that add to lasting a lifetime. And I think we need to kind of sit back and I don't know, like, that's at least the things that I sit back and I think about. But I think about a lot of the stuff in this business. So
well, it's the main thing. It's the old proverbial eyes and ears open. Always keeping your eyes.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. And I've been told that by so many people. Again, that circles back to what we were talking about with listening. Like, it's awesome to share, and and again, thank you for this platform to be able to talk about it. I love talking about wrestling. I love sharing my vision, but at the same time, listening, listening to other people's visions and hearing and learning is so important, because the only way I'm able to come up with my vision is if I listen to other people's visions. You know what I mean? And like listening it's such a big important part. You learn so much. And I know I'm repeating myself, but I think that's something that's so lacked in this business, because when you are a superstar and you are, doing the indie scenes, people are always asking questions, and it's great to ask questions, but at the same time, listen to what you asked and listen to the response as well.
And I mean, you have a woman like Lufisto, who such a veteran, rightfully deserved in the Indie Wrestling Hall of Fame, by the way. That speech was
Yes.
amazing, got you to tears. It's one of the
Yes.
things with a woman like that, with what she's battled with health wise, what she's battled internally and externally. She's one of
Yes.
the in the ring. Again, so crisp, so powerful, and such an inspiration to a lot of the women coming up.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I got the pleasure to work with her as well, at Glory Pro. And I think just 18 at the time. I had just turned 18. And I mean, again, the what she shared with me, and just the vibe that she gave off was so welcoming and so warming, which is just crazy. It's just so crazy for me to think, because at that time, and still at this time, who am I? um, but again, those are the women where you said it best. Those are the women that just give so much to this business. And if you're just quiet enough, you can observe, and if you just listen enough, they'll give you all the answers. They'll tell you how they got there, and all you got to do is follow that blueprint.
Right. And I also look at it from a stance too as well. Like we're talking about the evolution of women. Like WWE just did the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view, right? We started from Saudi Arabia with just Renee Young on commentary, right? Then we had Natalya and Lacey Evans. Then we had Bayley and Naomi. This past Elimination Chamber, besides the fact that we got to see Alita, who did an amazing job and can still go, 12
Yeah.
women, 12 women competed in Saudi Arabia, which is,
Yeah.
think about that, right?
It's crazy. And it's so rewarding to see that as a woman, especially at my age, because just again, it goes back to that thing of like, imagine 20 years from now, imagine 15 years, 50, whatever, even 10 years from now. Think about, like, like you said, 12 women. It's such a step. It's finally going in the right direction. I think it's giving a lot of us women here hope. And so you got to give it up to those women that are breaking those boundaries and those ceilings for women, hopefully like us, or like even like Thunder Rosa, to be able to do what she does, or Chris Statlander, Layla Hirsch, all of these girls who are breaking these boundaries to make it easier for us. It's a movement.
Right. And also I think one of the ones that really stuck out to me is because, man, it doesn't matter your orientation, your gender, what have you. If you're into professional wrestling, you respect it and want to apply your craft, do the damn thing. Don't let anybody stop you. But Sonya Deville, who was so underrated, that MMA, that wrestling mixed, right?
Yes.
So underrated.
Yes.
First openly gay woman to compete in Saudi Arabia.
Yes. Yeah.
Says it all right there,
It does. It does. It says it all. And yeah, I mean, it really brings a smile to my face. It does, because these women, I know they're facing a lot, I know they're challenging, and they may not always talk about it. But it's a lot, and it's hard. It's hard. So to finally get that reward it's it's so impactful to so many women. And the funniest thing is, they may not even know how impactful they're being, but it is. And hopefully it's impactful to men too. Like, 'cause even you're saying this, and you're like, oh my gosh, it's opening up so many minds and so many doors, and for us to even be able to talk about this now.
And I think with professional wrestling, and I'll use women's wrestling as an example, women's wrestling by us men, not all of us, I'll exclude myself from that, but a lot of men would call the proverbial women's match the proverbial piss break, which is very demeaning. It's very degrading, but it's like,
Yeah.
look, they're going to go out there, they're going to wrestle 4 minutes, maybe they'll roll around, and then we'll get to the finish.
Yeah.
That mindset back in the day. And then you have women like Mickey James and Trish Stratus and Lita and all these women that paved the way for women like yourself. And it's just boom. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, we get to see like Mickey James. They just announced she's going to be doing Game Changer Wrestling against said Allie Catch, which is amazing to see. And
Yes,
it's so rewarding just to see women of all different, divisions, sizes, shapes, what have you. It's a beautiful time.
I agree 100%.
Now, for you, I'm going to say this because you absorb like a sponge. And this is why I love you. I'm talking to you. Real sponge. You got the fountain of youth over here. Talk about I'm 22, double two. You're feeling 22. Just call you Taylor Swift of the professional industry.
You don't even get how big of a compliment that was. I freaking love Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift is like my secret. Like, it's not probably a secret because I play it all the time, but like she is an inspiration. So that actually means a lot. I appreciate that.
Video for you. I don't know if you've seen. Did you ever see? Oh my god, I think it was WrestleMania 29 where it was like CM Punk, Sergeant Slaughter, Hornswoggle, and all these people singing 22 by Taylor Swift. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Okay, so for those who've never seen it, it's WrestleMania 29 weekend. They have a song playing. Dolph Ziggler singing it. CM Punk was best because he's not even singing. He's just talking like, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22. And he's not even singing. He's just talking like the best in the world, CM Punk. It's hilarious. I got to send you the video. It's hilarious.
Please do. That's hilarious.
But yeah, that stuff like that, it equates to pop culture. And I mean, this year at WrestleMania, we got Logan Paul, and people will say what they will about Logan Paul, but from what he does with social media and YouTube, his podcast, like we talked about views, he brings in the people. Johnny Knoxville, after 20 plus years of doing death-defying stunts, and the man's out of his mind, he's bonkers. Still to this day, Jackass is a franchise, brings in the we have people like Ronda Rousey brings in the viewers. Bad Bunny brought it in last year. So it's great to see that celebrity vibe. I mean, we would all use on it, but it's like these people are putting it to work.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's definitely a different take, but again, you have to take that seat back and realize, why are they bringing these people in? Because if you hate it and again, I can get why. I can understand why you hate it, but that's because I'm taking that step back to realize why. So I think again, you have to, sometimes people, especially as wrestlers, you get so sucked in to what's going on, you forget to take that step back. And I know that happens in like life too, right? But just being able to take that step back and realizing why, because you're never going to be able to get to where you want to go if you don't understand what they're currently doing. And if you just spend your time hating it, then you're not spending your time learning and figuring out why, and like you said, it brings in the views. It's bringing in more people. I think more people now know what wrestling is. Just a more of a broadened audience knows what wrestling is, and that's a W for wrestling as a whole.
And people can poo-poo on Pat McAfee, but Pat McAfee's an entertaining commentator. He's was an amazing football player, and now he's wrestling with Austin Theory, and he's putting in the work. If what we saw against Adam Cole was any indication, I'm looking forward to seeing Pat McAfee. You have gravitated me to Pat McAfee.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I watched an interview with him recently, and like the guy has a good mind. He has a good mind, and again, that's stuff that you have to take and consider, and what is he bringing to the table? Why do they bring him in? What's the reason? And so like those are, it adds flavor, it adds sauce, it adds a little bit of something extra, so.
I mean, I'll use my pop culture reference here. It's like Craig David when he was talking about what's your flavor. Tell me what's your flavor. Oh, from the old school like jeans commercials that he used to have. But it's stuff like that from pop culture to wrestling. It makes sense. You could anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
I will say this about you because, guys, we got CCW Glory coming to you this Saturday. This one's taking on Catalina Garcia. I cannot wait for the match. Do you have any final words for your opponent, Catalina Garcia? The floor is yours here, Miss Savanna Stone.
Watch out. Watch out, because what you've done is great, but I'm great too.
Beautifully said, intimidating words, and I got chills right now just for saying that. Simple and effective, my friend. Simple and effective. Guys, check out CW Glory this Saturday. Now, before we do close this out, I'm going to say this. The Overture's here. Anytime you want to come back for round 2, you're more than welcome. I really enjoyed this conversation tonight.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. I had fun.
You're very welcome, as did I. So before we close this out, ladies first, not just a Queen Latifah song, please promote Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, where we can all find you on all forms of social media. Please go right ahead.
Yeah. So on Twitter, it's Savannah Stone, 01. And then on Instagram, it's Savannah Stone 01. Super original, I know. And then on Facebook, it's Savannah Stone.
Well, first of all, it doesn't have to be original. That's simple enough. If you put the 01, here's the thing. You could switch that on people and you could tell them you like Nelly, you're number one. Two is not a winner. Three, nobody remembers. You could flip it on him.
I could. I just got to remember it. I had to keep it simple because I wouldn't remember what my username is. And I logged out too many times, if you want the honest truth.
To all of us with social media, Miss Savannah Stone. So you're guilty as charged when it comes to that as well. So now you're Oh my goodness. And before we close this out, guys, as I always say, I work with a lot of amazing women. You are just one of many. And as I always say, beauty, strength, and dominance, the three key elements that make women the work of art that they are. And Miss Savannah Stone, my fountain of youth, sponge absorbing friend, I include you in the comments. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.